everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two for the Show. We are your hosts, obviously Derek Dimes and my boy Bryce. We're super excited to be back with you guys. Another episode of some Corona action, quarantine time. Bryce, what you got going on down there in the Carolinas, man? Are you staying sane or what?
Yeah, man, I'm staying sane. I've been hitting that PlayStation game I told you guys about last time real hard. That Dead by Daylight, man. I am hooked. I haven't been hooked on a game this bad since Fortnite came out. When Fortnite first came out, I played Fortnite quite a bit.
Nice.
But I love that Dead by Daylight. Looking forward to the nice weather. We've had some pretty good weather here lately. Been getting in the yard, doing some yard work.
Right.
Turkey season's coming up, starts tomorrow, so I'll be in the woods for that. But that's about it. That's everything I got going my way.
Nice, man. Yeah, a couple of my buddies want me to try to get into hunting. I've never got into it. I don't know if I'm into, waiting in the cold and it's like still the weather up here is crazy, man. Like we've had a day with 70 and then last night was like 40-mile-per-hour winds. One of our family members didn't have power for like 12 hours, and then it was snowing today earlier. So it's been like I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I'm not into the woods. I do like to shoot a little bit. But yeah, video games for me, TV. We started watching All American on Netflix. I've heard a lot of good things, so we jumped into that football show. It's pretty good. Tay Diggs is the head coach there. So yeah, not a bad show if you're looking for a show to watch. You got any new shows to watch? Or you still on Better Call Saul? You still catching up?
I put that on the back burner. We we're on Money Heist season 4 now, so. If you guys aren't into Money Heist, you probably wouldn't like it because it's a European show with the American or the English voiceovers, so it might not be your cup of tea.
Oh no, I watched your show.
The show is legit, man.
I watched your movie.
Oh, did you? The platform?
We watched it.
It was dark, was it not? It was crazy.
I forgot to hit you up. Yeah, we watched it. Last weekend. Yeah, it was like we hated the ending, but we thought it was. Yeah, it was like the worst ending ever. If you didn't watch Platform, watch it. It's actually pretty good. It's definitely dark is the perfect word for it. It's certainly dark. But I thought it was pretty good. I was surprised. It was different. I try to like put myself in that situation. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would, I don't know what I would have done in that situation.
It's a crazy movie, definitely one of a kind for sure, and dark.
Gosh. I've never seen any movie like that. Ever. Yeah. So just for that alone, it was worth the watch. Like, I don't know if I'd rewatch it per se, but it wasn't bad. So yeah, I did watch that. But yeah, so last time on the show, we talked about our best NBA players that we've seen in our lifetime, and we ranked them first team, second team, third team. And obviously we had like an honorable mention list of guys that we left out. Moving forward with today's episode, I'm excited and I'm nervous excited. I'm not going to lie. With this list, I'm sweating underneath your sweatshirt. Like, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know why, but I am a little nervous. We have our college basketball top 10 list of our lifetime. So I don't know about for Bryce. For me, as I said before, I'm 33 years old. And when I first started watching basketball, to my memory, it was a lot of NBA. It wasn't a ton of college. So for me, it's really been the last 25-ish, 23-ish years of my existence. So I'm not sure about you, but that's about how my list is going to go.
Yeah, same here. I really didn't start watching the NBA till the early 2000s, so I do have a little bit of more of a memory of college basketball in the late 90s. Actually, the first college game I ever went to live was in Chapel Hill. It was to see Vince Carter, Anton Jameson, and those guys. They played Princeton and put on a show.
It was loaded. Back when they were doing the inbound plays and throwing alley-oops from the inbounds. They were insane.
I can still remember going to that game with my great uncle, and just great memories for that. But I would have liked to have been a little bit older so I could talk. That guy we were just talking about, Marcus Camby, some of those guys. Yeah. I think Marcus Camby is probably one of the best college basketball players of all time. And but obviously he didn't make my list because I really don't have much memory of him playing. But my list would probably start in the early 2000s and there on.
Right. Yeah, mine is similar to that range as well. As far as having a distinct memory of guys and wanting to see them play and having memories of it. So for me, it's going to be around that range as well. I know I won't say anymore. I won't say anymore. We'll talk about guys we left off the list and all that stuff. So we'll start bottom up. I'll let you start first. Starting at number 10, who's the 10th best player you've seen in your lifetime? Wait, first of all, let's go. Let's do like this. What was your criteria? So what for your list?
I had a bunch of guys written down, and I was like, I got to have some kind of criteria to differentiate these guys. And I think I have one guy on the list that did not either win a national championship or be named the Naismith Player of the Year, and that just obviously goes without saying. Like I like a guy to make a run in the tournament. I think that's very crucial to making this list or something. More games to watch and clutch performances. But having said all that, my number 10 guy is Jimmer Fredette.
Woo, guys. That's a good choice. You want me to say mine, then we'll discuss why, or you want to say?
Yeah, go ahead. Who you got at number 10?
At number 10, my number 10 pick is Kevin Durant. So the reason that Kevin Durant makes my list, and pretty much the only reason that he made the list, he's a one-and-done player. Had a phenomenal career at Texas, 25.8 points a game, 11.1 rebounds per game, and almost 48% from the field. National Player of the Year, but the first freshman to ever win it. And I think that makes it important for him to be on the list because he's the first freshman to ever do it. In his career, he's only had one game where he scored 11 points or less, and he only played 19 minutes in that game. Just we know the type of player Kevin Durant is, and that just established his greatness for me. He comes in one year, and they made the tournament. They obviously didn't make a deep run, which is why he's not any higher, but one and done. And I just think that's what really solidified the number 10 spot for me, being the first freshman to win a National Player of the Year. I thought was significant and too significant to leave off this list.
Yeah, I don't hate the pick. Kevin Durant was very, very good at the University of Texas.
Right.
Would have liked to seen him make a deeper run in the NCAA tournament for sure.
Agreed.
But that rivalry he had with Beasley at Kansas State was something to watch. Was it not?
They were going at it, man. I love Beasley. Me and a couple buddies talked about how good Beasley was. And you had Jimmer on your list at 10.
Yeah.
I love Jimmer, man.
I love me some Jimmer, man. If he had just halfway better, basketball players there on his team, I think that team probably carries them to the Elite Eight easy. At least once out of 4 years rather. Right. As a freshman, he wasn't as good, but as sophomore, junior, senior, Jimmer Fredette, that boy could put it in the hoop.
One of the best players I've ever watched. And as we were before we got on, and I was saying, man, I'm having a hard time because there's guys I want to put on this list that I can't put on the list based on that. But Jimmer actually moving on is on my list, and he's number 9 on my list. So we do have one in common. He was either going to be 9 or 10. I felt like I couldn't leave Durant out, and because of the tournament run, he moves down to 10 for me. Jimmer's at 9. They did make the Sweet 16 one year, but Jimmer Fredette, if we're talking about scoring the basketball, guys, he has one of the best single seasons we've ever seen. 1,068 points in a single season, guys. Almost 29 points per game. And we glorify Curry for how he shoots it from 40. He was one of the first guys that I watched do that at the collegiate level. Just a phenomenal scorer and a flat-out bucket getter. Who you got at number 9? Oh, my fault.
He would pull up from anywhere. He'd pull up from anywhere.
Unconscious. It was unconscious. Like he literally, I'm like, he's not going to shoot it from, and he would just shoot it from there. It was insane. And it was for our era, really the first time you seen BYU kind of make a run. So I'm sure they kind of go on and off. They're one of those teams like every 4 years they go in and out. But he kind of put them in our lifetime on the map as being kind of back.
Yeah. And the Mountain West, he's the Mountain West career leading scorer, and then Mountain West has had a lot of good basketball players come through that conference, so that kind of puts that into perspective. My number 9 guy is another bucket getter, another Naismith Player of the Year winner, another small town school. Doug McDermott from Creighton is my number 9 player. I love that boy. That guy could go get you a bucket, and he was about as clutch as you could ask for. I mean, I've seen that guy hit multiple game winners, just daggers, crushing people's souls along the way. Yeah. And I love the guy.
That is a great pick. Doug McDermott was the guy, I didn't want to say his name, that I left off the list. And the only reason I left off the list is I just felt like he never made it to the Sweet 16. But he was phenomenal, sixth all time in total points in collegiate basketball history, and that was what made it hard for me. It was between like him and Fredette and Durant, or like who I'm going to leave off the list. So like maybe Durant was a leap, but yeah, Dougie Buckets, man, was exactly that. Dougie Buckets was filling it up in college, man. He was filling it up. Never shot less than 40% from three.
Yeah.
45% three-point shooter career average. Insane. So put that in perspective. Kevin Durant shot 47 from the field, period. This man shot 45 from three. The three. Insane. Yeah. So I don't hate that at all at number 9. I'll let you roll into number 8 and see what you have here. I think our lists are going to start getting a little crazy.
Our lists have already obviously going to be a little different with McDermott being off of yours. My number 8 guy is another bucket getter. He did not win a national championship, and he did not win the Naismith Player of the Year, but he did take a small school on a deep run in the NCAA tournament, going to the Elite Eight, losing by a basket to Kansas, and that man is Steph Curry. That guy, to watch that guy make that run was unbelievable what that guy did at Davidson. There wasn't another guy playing on Davidson that could be even a Power 5 conference whatsoever on a team. Half those guys probably shouldn't even been D1 basketball, but they made it nonetheless. What that guy did was absolutely just phenomenal. Made me want to go back and watch some of his games from not in the tournament. And that guy had 2 of the most special seasons of all time at Davidson.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's what's funny is he was the other guy that was on my list that I didn't put on my list. So that's a little bit of a spoiler. He didn't make my list, and I really, really wanted to put him on my list, but I felt like Jimmer's season was so phenomenal it couldn't be left off. And I thought that being the first freshman to win National Player of the Year was so significant that I couldn't, you know what I mean? But what Steph Curry did, I mean, in 2 seasons, he's 8th and 22nd, both top 25 in college basketball history single season in points, 974 and 931, Elite 8, just tremendous. I still feel a way about him not being on my list, considering he was the number 1 point guard I picked for NBA in my lifetime. But moving on for me, in my number 8 spot is a guy that I don't think he's going to make your list, but he made my list, and that's Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin made my list. 2 appearances in the tournament, 1 Elite 8, but we're talking about a walking double-double. National Player of the Year. He only had 4 games, I believe it was, or 5 games his sophomore year where he didn't have a double-double. Just phenomenal. Big 12 record in double-doubles, rebounds, total rebounds, and rebounds per game. In a single season rebounds, that was, in rebounds per game. Big 12 Player of the Year. Phenomenal player, man. He was a human highlight reel. I loved watching Blake Griffin, and he makes my number 8 spot here for the best that I've seen in my lifetime. But yeah, I'm still salty about not having Steph on my list.
Blake Griffin was very, very good for the University of Oklahoma. I think I based his entire career off of 1 game, and that's not fair. You shouldn't do that to any player. But for whatever reason, in my mind, it's the 1 game, and that was whenever they played UNC in the NCAA tournament, and Blake Griffin did not show up that game.
Right.
I don't know if it was a game plan that Roy had, or if that team, because that Carolina team, they won the national championship. They were on a mission, and they didn't win a game by less than, I think, 12 points through the entire tournament.
Right.
But Blake Griffin, when they played Carolina, he just did not show up, and I for some reason, I just, in my mind, when I think of Blake Griffin at Oklahoma, I think of that game. It's burned in my brain, and I'm like, okay. But then, like you said, dude, what he did on the court, it's tough. And obviously, I don't want to spoil it, but he did not make my list. He is the guy that I had wrote down, but ultimately did not crack the top 10. So who you got at number 7?
Oh, man, this is a tough list. It's about to get crazy. Number 7 for me, University of Connecticut, Kemba Walker is my number 7 pick here, as the all time I've seen, and I felt like he had to make the list. I feel like his overall career wasn't significantly dominant, but what he did his last year was maybe the best single season performance from the conference tournament to the NCAA tournament that I'd ever seen. Doesn't lose a game. He runs through the Big East, is Big East MVP, goes into, and the crossover. We still see the crossover highlights to this day. He just snatched the angles, boom, boom, hits the jumper, wow, nothing but net. Kimball was incredible, but he makes my number 7 spot, first team All-American that year, 23.5 points per game, most outstanding player. So he did not win a Naismith, but he did win the tournament MVP, and just, I think, too important of a player and too significant of a player to not have on my list. Kemba Walker, number 7.
My number 7 player from the University of Connecticut, Kemba Walker.
Oh, my boy.
So looks like we're back. Maybe our list is maybe working its way back together. Kemba Walker would have been higher on the list had he played in the Final Four where a 1 or 2 seed made it. I'm not taking away from that run, not taking away. But that was one of the only years that you'll ever find in a college basketball tournament where a 1 seed or a 2 seed did not make the Final Four. I think they played Kentucky in the Final Four. They won by a point, and then they played Butler in the national championship game. The Final Four that year was Butler, VCU, Kentucky, and Connecticut. VCU took out a very loaded Kansas team in the Elite Eight. I think there were some very good basketball teams that year. Carolina, Kansas, and Duke all were 1 or 2 seeds that year, and none of them made the Final Four. So that's the only reason that he's not higher on my list. But what that man did in March and April of that year was special. I'll never forget watching it, ever. And I think to this day, you were talking about the crossover. He had a crossover to win a game in the Big East tournament against Pitt. I think he crossed up DeJuan Blair. Yeah. DeJuan Blair, that crossover is probably why that guy did not go further in the NBA in his career. DeJuan Blair was a very good basketball player. He lost his ankles that day, and he still hasn't found them.
And I love DeJuan Blair. 2 ACL tears, and he was a bucket at Pitt.
Yeah, his ankles couldn't support his knees, so he couldn't support his weight. That's why he had his ACL tears, bro.
But yeah, Kimba is my number 7. Who you got at number 6?
Okay, I hate to say it. Obviously, I'm a Carolina fan. I can show you a bunch of Carolina stuff all over my walls in my office. This guy played for the University of Duke. Hated him at the time. Have learned to appreciate how good of a basketball player he actually was. He's probably not even on your list, but that's Shane Battier. Shane Battier was one of the most I could tell by your eyes that you probably didn't even write this guy down.
I did.
You did? Okay. Shane Battier, he's number 6 on my list. Naismith Player of the Year. Has a national championship with Duke. That guy was about as clutch as you could get. He did whatever you asked him to do on the basketball floor, and he did it well. And that's why he made my list. He was a great teammate and checked all boxes.
Great choice. He's on my list. We'll talk about it when we get to him. But he's higher. He's higher.
Okay.
This is a guy that I think people are going to have higher, that I dropped lower because he didn't win a natty. But he was very, very good. And that's J.J. Redick. I have here at the number 6 spot for me, all-time leading scorer in Duke history and flat-out bucket getter, 12th in his single season, 964 points, 26 points per game, National Player of the Year. Goes to the Sweet 16 multiple times, went to a Final Four, never got a natty, and I think that is the reason that he doesn't move up higher for me. Everyone above him from this point forward on my list has a natty, so it was a hindrance knocking him down. So obviously being an all-time leading scorer at a team as prestigious as Duke Blue Devils, you have to be on the list. He's all-time leading scorer, phenomenal player. And like you said, I thought you were going to say JJ Redick. I'm not going to lie, because I can't stand JJ Redick, but I've learned to appreciate him. So it's the same feel that you have for Shane Battier, but I've learned to appreciate him in the NBA. He's one of the veterans, and was on the Sixers. I wish he was still on the Sixers, but not for $20 million. But but yeah, he's a guy I've learned to appreciate as well. So JJ Redick is my number 6 spot moving forward. Do you have any words for JJ Redick? Is he on your list?
How about we talk about your number 5? Let's talk about your number 5, and we might touch back on JJ Redick in a minute.
All right, here we go. Number 5. Hey, I'm going back to back back to back. There's some dookies on my list, and I'm not proud about it. Number 5 is Jay Williams. Is my number 5.
Wow.
Phenomenal player.
Whoa.
I think that he is significantly underrated. 2-time All-American, 2 Sweet 16, 1 Natty, National Player of the Year, ACC Rookie of the Year. Jay Williams, I really wonder what his career would have been in the NBA had he not had that accident that ruined him. But to me, he was a guy that I kind of looked at similar to like Derrick Rose before Derrick Rose, supremely athletic, end-to-end speed, great defender. And he got a National Player of the Year, and I think that's significant. Back-to-back All-Americans in 3 years at Duke. So I really wish that we could have seen what he would do in the NBA over a long period of time. The accident kind of cut him short. But Jay Williams, he may not even be on your list, but Jay Williams right now is the 5th player on my list, man. Who you got on your list?
Another Dookie, another guy that I didn't like, Jay Williams. There did have a very good career. My number 5 guy is going to be back from the University of Connecticut. He was a showstopper, a guy you had to count for at all times. He carried a team to a national championship. Probably could have or should have won a Naismith Player of the Year. Emeka Okafor was an absolute beast, and he's number 5 on my list.
Oh, he was listed, but he didn't make my list.
Really?
Really? But he was. I had it was. Yeah.
Go
He's
back
good.
and watch that.
I got no hate.
Okay.
I
mean, I guess
I have no negative slander for him at all. Not at all. Okafor was phenomenal rebounder and shot blocker for sure. He was dominant.
Talk about a walking double in Blake Griffin.
Yeah, he was.
Was a monster.
He was a monster. I don't have any rebuttal for it.
Okay. All right. Well, no rebuttal. Then I won't reel off all the stats and why I put him at number 5. If you don't know who Emeka Okafor is or remember him, go back and watch that guy from the Connecticut years. I think they won that in 2004. Number 4 player on my list, a man that was number 6 on yours from the University of Duke. Probably one of the sweetest jump shots I've ever seen. JJ Redick. I hate the guy. I cannot stand. Sorry, hate's a strong word. I very much dislike JJ Redick.
Wait, we're on 4 now? Is this 5 or 4?
I'm on 4.
4. All right, I'm just making sure.
JJ Redick, and probably my favorite memory of JJ Redick was his senior night when my Carolina Tar Heels went into a little place called Cameron Indoor and they upset Duke. On senior night, JJ Redick had to go back on the court after losing to Carolina and get honored for seniors because they don't do senior night before the game and Duke. They do it after because they expect to win. And that's my favorite JJ memory right there. Seeing that boy cry to go back on the court. All kidding aside, that dude was a phenomenal college basketball player. And he just couldn't be stopped. He could not be stopped. I don't know how that Duke team did not win a national championship. I really don't.
It's insane. That was like a huge underachievement. I thought for sure they'd get at least one, and they did not. But yeah, you already know how I feel about JJ. He made my list a little bit lower. My 4th spot is a guy, and I think maybe he might not be on your list. Maybe he's a little bit higher. My 4th spot, Carmelo Anthony, is number 4 on my list here. All-American, one and done. He comes in. He's on your list. He's got to be on your list. He got a natty. He's All-American, national championship, most outstanding player in the tournament. Never had a game where he scored single digits in his 1 year at Syracuse. Obviously played with other good players in Jerry McNamara and Hakeem Warwick, but he was the driving force behind that Syracuse team. 22 and 10, double machine, could score and give it to you any way you wanted. Certainly one of the best players I've saw in college basketball in my lifetime. Carmelo Anthony is in my number 4 spot.
Melo beat a great Kansas team to win that national championship.
Bucket getter, man. I was watching the highlights the other day. They couldn't stop him. You just come down, pull up, turn around, face up, pull up. Oh, you're going to put this guy on me? Back down, turn around, lay up. Oh, this guy's too big? Drive by, lay up. I'm like, this guy is doing whatever he wants to do.
Whatever he wanted on the basketball floor.
Whatever he wanted to do. I mean, I feel bad because his NBA career, I feel like it's slighted. But he's one of the best scorers. Like, before Durant came, I was kind of looking at him as like he might be the best bucket getter in the NBA that I've seen. But to me now it's Kevin Durant. But yeah, Melo is number 4 on my list. may be on your list higher, may not be on your list. We'll see moving forward. Number 3 on my list moving forward is Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis is someone I think has to be on the list for 2 reasons. He's one of only 2 players, another player is on the list that has these as well, that has a National Player of the Year award and an Outstanding Tournament award. So I think I've rewarded the players who've had both, and he is one of those players. Third here on my list is Anthony Davis. And if you have not checked tape, please check tape. Absolute force. SEC Rookie of the Year, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, SEC Player of the Year, 4th all-time single-season blocks. Just a phenomenal one-and-done year with that Kentucky team.
Don't hate it. He did not make my list. Anthony Davis was right on the cusp. The reason why I did not take him up, and this is crazy, I'll try to rationalize why I didn't have him on my list, is because as good as he was, I think he underachieved. You know, he only averaged 14 points a game. You know, he had 10 rebounds, but he did everything for that Kentucky team with blocks and everything. I think he could have scored. I think he could have averaged easily 25 points a game. So I would have liked to have seen him have, you know, a little more than that 14.8, I think is what it was.
Sure.
But the run that he had in the tournament, very, very good. Did not make my list. My number 3 guy is Carmelo Anthony. For every reason that you just said,
Right.
I'll piggyback on it. No one could stop that guy come tournament time. And I think that Kansas team that they beat was one of the best teams to not win a national championship in my lifetime.
Right.
And I think that really kind of just added on to the fact that why I have Carmelo that high. Number 2 player that I have on my list, you've already mentioned him, another Dookie, Jason Williams. For all the reasons that you said.
Number 2, I like it.
All the reasons you said. Do you realize that we're at number 2 right now, and I have 3 Duke players on my list?
I got the same 3. So here's the thing: the players are going to be similar. The rankings are going to be different based on criteria. So it's just we didn't talk about the criteria. We just said our 10 players. So as long as the players are similar, which they are, there's going to be a couple differences here and there. But Jay Williams, man, I watched him take over games, just completely take over games, like single-handedly take over games. And those battles with him, like you're a Carolina guy. My dad lives in Baltimore. So I was a Maryland guy. I watched the Terps play, and I watched them have so many good battles with Jay Williams and the Dukies, man. Just a phenomenal player.
That was a rivalry back then. Maryland and Duke, those like 3 years, what was it, 01 to 04?
Going at it, man.
Going at it.
Going at it.
I think the year that Maryland won the national championship was Steve Blake and Juan Dixon. We were talking about those guys before the podcast. They both those teams went 32-4 that year. A number 1 and a number 4 seed, or number 1 and number 4 in the nation. Those battles that those guys had was just crazy. Maryland was very good that year, but Jason Williams, national championship, player of the year, probably could have won a player of the year twice. But I think he
should have gave it to him twice.
He should have, but they don't do that anymore. They don't do it anymore. So he should have got it twice.
He definitely should have got it twice. I agree.
But who you got at number 2?
Number 2 is a guy that has to be on your list. So I'm assuming he's your number 1. But my number 2 is Psycho T. Tyler Hansborough is the number 2 best player I've seen in my lifetime. And this is a guy that I don't necessarily love. Tyler Hansborough, I think he was a really good college player. He's just one of those guys I think that just outworked like to me, I equate him to like the Tim Tebow of college basketball. As far as like they just outworked everybody, they played the hardest, they worked the hardest, and it showed. I always think about that moment when he had the blood, running down his face, and I was like, Psycho T is like he was a beast. You know what I mean? 4-time All-American, 1 Elite Eight, 1 Final Four, 1 national championship. I mean, all-time leading scorer in UNC history, 15th all-time in total points. There's a million things you could say about Tyler Hansborough, but, man, it's physical and it's tough as they come. Psycho T, Tyler Hansborough is my number 2 all-time player.
I don't hate it.
We know you don't hate it, Carolina. We know.
I don't hate it.
So who you rolling with number 2, man? Who's your guy?
Jason Williams was number 2 for
Oh
me.
yeah, yours was number 2. So I'll go my number 1. Or are you gonna say yours?
Go.
I'll say
you go. You go number 1.
My number 1 is Shane Battier. I think, to me, is my number 1 player. This is going to be scrutinized. I know it is, but to me, as you said, how you felt that Chris Paul was like your definition of a true point guard. To me, he's a definition of a basketball player. He's a leader. He is a winner. Nobody wins more than Shane Battier. 4 playoff appearances, or 4 tournament appearances, a Sweet 16, an Elite 8, a runner-up, and Natty, National Player of the Year, All-American, and he's just an all-out baller. 41% three-point percentage for his career, and just did everything. You know what I mean? He's the guy that's like, if you look for the moment during those stretches, during all those runs that they made, he was the guy. He was always the guy. If you needed to stop, he got to stop. If you needed to score, he got to score. He was a staple that kept those teams together through those 4 years. And he's a guy that I feel like the numbers aren't as crazy as some of the other guys we listed, but he's a guy, if you make a lineup, you talk about glue guys and you talk about leaders and you talk about winners, Shane Battier is a winner. And he's number 1 on my list here. Yeah. On the and I said before, I said there was only 2 guys who had an outstanding player award in the tournament and had a Naismith. Shane Battier is one of those guys. And I think that put it over the edge for me, because that proves that you're not only good in the regular season, you're also good in the tournament when it matters. He had both. So he's an outstanding player in the tournament and outstanding player during the regular season, Shane Battier. But go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, Shane Battier, very, very good. And I think I might have, looking back on it, he might be too low for me. You know, I had him at 6. Right. Was he penalized because he played on Duke and they had all those good basketball players? I mean, Jay Williams was on that team.
Right, he was. Right.
And but Shane Battier, I don't know how you don't like the guy, even though I'm a Carolina guy and I dislike Duke. But as I've gotten older, that guy was something special. My number 1 player that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and no, it's not biased because I'm a Carolina fan. It's Tyler Hansbrough for the reasons that you mentioned. Tyler Hansbrough is not the most athletic guy on the court. He's not the most skilled guy on the court. But he's going to outwork you every single time. You know, there's a quote that says, you know, there's a guy somewhere that you're going to meet later on down the road, and he's practicing, and right now you're not. And when it comes time for you two to meet, he's going to beat you every single time. And that's Tyler Hansbrough. That's literally the definition of Tyler Hansbrough. And he's just going to outwork you. I think that he should have had he should have had 2 National Players of the Year. He should have been it twice. The 2008 team was the best team in the country. They lost to Kansas that year in the Final Four. He bounced back the very next year. Right. All those guys came back, and they went on probably the best run that any team has ever been on in the college basketball tournament. They did not win a game by less than 12 points. They beat Michigan State in Detroit to win the national championship. Right. That's basically beating a team in their home game. That's a home game. And beat them boys ragged. The 2009 Carolina Tar Heels are probably the best college basketball team I've ever seen in my life, and it's not because I'm a Carolina fan.
That may be true. But that made the list. We should look into a list like that, like the best teams we've seen. We'll do that for another day.
Yeah, that team could score 100 falling out of bed. I mean, that's how good they were. Right. And I think had it not been for Ty Lawson doing a couple key things that year, because Ty Lawson won the most valuable player of the tournament that year, Hansbrough would have had the player of the year and the tournament. You know, I don't know how he didn't. But I could go on and on about Tyler Hansbrough. He's the best player I've ever seen in college. Definitely sad moment to watch him leave Carolina for sure.
One of the best Tyler Hansbrough moments for me ever is when he went to the NBA and he kind of pushed Ron Artest, and Ron Artest turned around and Tyler was like, it's like, yeah, I'm tough. I'm not that tough. Like Ron Artest is like psycho tough. Psycho T was Psycho T until you met Meta World Peace now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's the guy changed his name. You want no parts of him. Random story. This is a ramble on, but I have to add this in since we're talking about Meta World Peace. I met Meta World Peace in Brooklyn. We were going to a fight. Actually, I was watching Earl Spence fight Lamont Peterson at the Barclays Center. So we're parked. Obviously, I'm parking where I'm not supposed to be parking. Our chicks run in. Our chicks run in to me and my brothers. Our girls run in to check us in the hotel, and I got my flashers on. And I'm walking by, I'm like, man, that looks like, is that Meta World Peace? And he walks past, and I don't say anything. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to
You're not
bother
gonna
him.
be that guy.
Yeah,
Right?
so literally, he walks past, he comes back, knocks. I'm like, what? Somebody's like, oh, so he's knocking on the window. So I always roll the window down. Yo, bro, the cop's writing you a ticket, man. You might want to get out of here. I was like, oh, I was like, oh. I was like, thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Like,
for the lookout, bro.
He's like, yeah, no problem. So I got out and started talking to her, and she let it go. And then she came back, and I was like, man, world peace. He was like, yo, man, what's up? And I was like, oh, man. It's like my little claim to fame. I was excited to talk to him. Real down to earth guy, real cool. But yeah, so we could continue on and talk about our guys who didn't make the list. For me, obviously, Steph Curry was huge. Emeka Okafor was huge for me as well. That did not make my list. And Dougie McDermott, I think, was one of the bigger ones as well. That jump right out at the top of my head. But college basketball, man, is so tough because there's so many teams and there's so many guys that have done significant things in their career that it's hard to narrow it down. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that we didn't even mention or list. Andrew Bogut, and Derrick Rose, Andrew Bogut, Jameer Nelson was incredible at St. Joe's.
Jameer Nelson was, yeah, St. Joe's was a 1 seed that year.
Yeah.
Put that into perspective.
Right.
Atlantic 10 small school. Jameer Nelson wins Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Was a 1 seed. That doesn't happen. He didn't have anybody else on that team.
Delonte West. Well,
that's
not at the caliber of him.
But not at that caliber that year.
Right.
To put that in perspective, Obi Toppin just did the exact same thing. Dayton was going to be a 1 seed. He won the Player of the Year. Yep. And that's kind of the level that Jameer Nelson played on that year was Obi Toppin this year. Jameer Nelson was phenomenal. Yeah. Trying to think of another guy that I left off the list. I said Steve Blake. You said Juan Dixon. We didn't have either one of those guys on the list.
Didn't have them on there,
but they both very good.
They were both very, very good. They still made a run there after Juan Dixon left. I think they were. I don't want to misquote it, but they were still a very solid team. Without him on that team. But yeah, going back to Jameer Nelson, Martelli is the head coach. He spoke at my graduation. Boom. Fun fact, Derek Dimes fact.
Little fun fact.
Little tidbit. Just throwing names out there a little bit. But yeah, he definitely, he's a guy like I just wanted to put on the list because I felt like ties to him. I watched him play since high school. He went to Chester High, and he played against Coatesville, which isn't far from where I grew up. And they had John Allen and some of these other guys that were really Shamad Tools, who ended up going to UConn. And John Allen went to Seton Hall. We know you love Seton Hall. But they played each other in district title game. They played each other like multiple times throughout the year. And I watched Jameer play through Chester and then to get to St. Joe's and to watch his game evolve was really cool. And so to see him play in the NBA was awesome. But, yeah, he's a guy that I wanted to put on the list. But some of these other guys, I mean, we're talking about almost everybody on this list is phenomenal, even in the NBA. You know what I mean? Their careers have all been pretty great.
Yeah. Jason Williams probably would have been one of the best basketball players in the NBA had he not had that accident as well. I obviously didn't have KD or Anthony Davis. Right. I penalized both of those guys because I think that they actually underperformed no matter as good as they were. KD, he really not having a deep tournament run hurt him in my mind. Right. Anthony Davis, I think, is a guy that could have easily averaged 25 plus points a game, and he didn't. But he also played on a very good Kentucky basketball team.
And that Kentucky team was juiced up, man. That was a really, really good team.
That was a very good team. Very good team.
He didn't have to score. He still won.
Right. Trying to think of anybody else. I said Derrick Rose. One thing that stuck out of my mind is there was not a single player from the Pac-12 on our list. You know, talk about Power 5 conferences. Pac-12 is a little weak in basketball. Maybe they should probably step it up.
I feel like it's only changed here recently in the past few years where they've actually been a little bit more respectable. But yeah, Pac-12, it definitely in our lifetime has been struggling. There's been some players to come out of there, but as a unit, we're kind of still waiting for the UCLAs to make their resurgence. I actually think this year they're going to be a lot better. in this year coming up. They got a lot of guys coming in and finally got the right head coach in there. But yeah, Pac-12 definitely has been slacking. It seems like a very but ACC and the Big East have been dominant in this. And this is when Maryland was in the ACC at that time. Obviously now they're in different conferences. They're in the Big Ten. But yeah, so things change with conference alignments, and I'm so happy to see UConn going back to the Big East. They should have no business leaving in the first place.
None. But also, talking about Power 5, I didn't have a guy from the SEC or the Big Ten in my list, which is surprisingly because Florida won back-to-back in the mid 2000s, and I didn't have any guy. I couldn't put him on the list.
But I couldn't pick one.
I couldn't pick one. No, Brewer, Noah, and then Horford. That was a perfect trio.
But you're talking about a team then that had they had a bunch of guys that were in double figures that year. So it's like, how do you pick one? One guy. You can't. They were a great team. As you're saying, great teams. Yeah, that's a top 5 in our lifetime. They have to be. They won back-to-back natties. Like, no one's done that in our life. Like, you know what I mean? They won back-to-back natties, bro. They got to be top 5 team that we've seen in our lifetime. But as far as individual players, I didn't think they had any one guy who stood out. But yeah, that was a great team to watch. Billy Donovan had them really going there.
He had them juiced.
I love that word. I don't know why. But yeah, that's all we have, man. Do you have anything you wanted to add or discuss? I know we kind of this was the main thing we wanted to talk about. Obviously, we talked a little bit of TV and video games and stuff. But if there's anything you wanted to add, obviously, go ahead and add it.
I think that's it. I feel like people probably are sleeping on Emeka Okafor, though. I think a lot of people who listen to this should probably go back and watch highlights of that guy play. I can't believe you don't have Steph Curry on your list after having first-team All-NBA, but it's completely 2 different sports, so I respect your opinion. And, I didn't have Anthony Davis on my list, and what was he, number 3 on yours?
Yeah, so it's tough, man. It's tough. Like, for me, that's really what separated some of these guys between him and Battier. It was having both the Naismith and the outstanding player of the tournament. I thought that was significant, and that should carry weight because we're talking about the last 20 plus years, and only 2 guys have done it. So if only 2 guys have done it, I think that should carry weight. So that really boosted guys that I thought were kind of maybe in the mid-tier range, that threw them into my top 3 immediately. Already they were great players without it, but I think that changed it. And our criteria, we didn't really discuss criteria, so obviously our list would be different.
Just one question for you, though. If Memphis would have won that national championship against Kansas, Mario Chalmers hit that shot. If they didn't, would Derrick Rose have made your list?
Probably. But that team was good. That Memphis team was very, very good. They couldn't make no free throws, man.
They couldn't make free throws.
They made free throws. The game was over. And you have to worry about, doing anything. But that Memphis team, Coach Cal is something else, man. He be cheating. I know he's cheating. He keeps getting off.
Is the best college basketball coach of all time.
No.
Name another coach that has taken 3 separate schools to a Final Four. I'll wait.
He cheats, man.
I'll wait.
We all know he cheats.
I'll wait. Don't worry, I'll wait.
All right, here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about Coach Cal. Coach Cal is the best recruiter we've ever seen. I don't know if I believe he's the best coach. Bro, I don't know if I believe with that.
He took UMass to the Final Four.
Yeah, Marcus Camby. Are you kidding me?
And? Stop.
Come on,
you know how many good players? Okay, Texas had Kevin Durant. They didn't make no Final Four.
Come on, man.
Come on now.
He always got a loaded team. That team still had what's the name with Derrick Rose? They had like 3 really good players on that team. I'm not going for that. I'm not going to say he's the best.
Okay. I will, but it's fine. It's fine.
In our lifetime or ever? You're saying ever?
I'm saying there's literally no other coach that has ever done it.
You got to win, bro. How many natties you got? All right, then that's all that
but
matters.
He should have 3.
It don't matter. So we can talk about how many Final Fours Izzo's been to. He got more than 1 natty, though. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Izzo don't have more than 1 natty?
No. Well,
1. He's got 1.
He got one. I still would take Izzo over Cal. Are you kidding? And he doesn't get nearly the talent that Cal gets. You tell me if he had that same team, are you kidding me? compare. Okay, here's a good question. Who's the best guard Michigan State's ever had in our lifetime? Like the best guard they probably had. Like they won
Jason
with
Richardson.
Yeah, but like he's not in the breath row of anyone that Cal's had. No way. I would take Derrick Rose over him. Are you kidding? You would. I would. You would take Richardson over Derrick Rose. Are you kidding me?
Bro, I think you're forgetting how good Jason Richardson was in college. Matter of fact, he probably should have even been written down on this piece of paper right here, and I didn't write it down. But now that I think about it, oh yeah.
No.
All right. Well,
I'm about to pull it up now.
Let's go. Hey, we'll pull it up and discuss it after this. We'll let the people go. They don't want to hear this nonsense.
But yeah, whatever. This thing is going longer than expected. We're going to get out of here and go to probably play video games or have a beverage or two. But thanks you guys for tuning in. It's been fun with our top 10 list. Weigh in and let me know who you would add on your list, who you would take off the list. We're going to have this up on YouTube. The YouTube channel is up and going with Ghost Picks 2 for the Show podcast. You put in Ghost Picks 2 for the Show, and it should pop right up. All the videos that we've done so far with every episode. Spotify, it's up and going. We're still waiting for the approval from iTunes. Anchor, we are up and going as well if you have the Anchor app. So hopefully we can get this episode up and running for you guys here tonight and get moving forward. But that is all we have for you guys here. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of 2 for the Show with Bryce and myself, Derek Dimes. Guys, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. It is Ghost Picks ATS, guys. 3 G's of Ghost is how we roll here. As always, G times 3 is how I personally say it, guys. God bless. As always, good luck and continue to grind on.